One of the biggest mistakes people make when buying a franchise is they don't know their numbers. They get caught up in the brand and the vision and the idea, but they are completely oblivious to how much sales do you need to do every single week, month, and year to not only break even, but to start to make some money. So I'm going to walk you through a very simple step-by-step process of how you can build a break-even analysis. This is the same process that I've used in building my business to over 30 franchises. We do over $50 million a year in revenue. And I don't have an MBA. It doesn't need to be super complicated. I'm going to walk you through it, and we're going to run through 3 different models here. If you want to grab this spreadsheet, the link will be below in the description. Let's roll. Every P&L can be broken down into 3 simple components. Number 1, what are your fixed costs? Like, these are the costs that you're going to have every month, no matter what. And in my business, for example, I'm going to have about $2,500 a month in shop operations. This is a retail automotive franchise, but the principles apply to whatever you're going to look at. I'm going to have about $11,000 a month in occupancy costs. So this would be like my rent, my taxes, property insurance, that kind of thing. And another $3,500 in what I'm going to call admin expenses. This is going to be everything else in subscriptions and like accounting and back office and like everything admin related to running the business. So every single month, I'm going to have about $17,000 that I'm going to have to write no matter if we're open or closed or sales are good or bad. It is what it is. Then we're going to have variable expenses. So these are the ones that fluctuate with sales. Now, in a franchise business, royalties and advertising are the 2 biggest factors, which in my case, we pay about 5% royalties, about 5% advertising. We pay about 2% in credit card fees and another 3% in credit card fees and another 2% in commissions. 15% of every single dollar out the door goes to those expenses. And then we have payroll. So payroll is a fixed expense in the beginning for a lot of businesses. You're going to have people there. Whether sales are kind of there or not, as you start to ramp it up, we're going to have a manager we're going to pay about $1,250 per week. We are not going to start with an assistant manager. We're going to have a really good tech, like a B tech and a C tech. We have a 15% loaded cost. So when you have payroll, you're going to have workers' comp, you're going to have maybe health insurance, you're going to have payroll taxes that as a business you're going to pay. Roughly 15% for my business at least is what we pay in addition to their payroll. We can see here every single week we have $8,700 a week in fixed costs, $37,000 a month in fixed costs, and over $450,000 a year. We add all the payroll plus occupancy and all that stuff. That moves to our second part of our variable costs, which are our cost of goods. And so we run right now about a 24% cost of goods. So if we do $1,000 repair for brakes or whatever it is, we're gonna have roughly $240 of expenses that we're gonna pay to the parts houses for the brake pads and the rotors and the calipers and anything that we do. In total, we have about a 39% variable cost. So we have 15% that we pay here, and then another 24% for cost of goods, leaving us, which is what's called a contribution margin. This is like a thing that you need to know, of 61%. And contribution margin is just 1 minus the variable cost. So what this says is for every dollar of sales we do, 61 cents goes towards contributing towards the business, and 39% goes off the top. So whether we are doing 10 million, 100 million, or 1 million, 39% of our revenue is out the door. We can only really bank on the 61% that remains. This is all we need. So right here, we know that our break even for this store is $14,293, or roughly $62,000 a month, or $738,000 a year. That's it. That's what we need to do. So when you own a business, especially when you're starting from zero, like getting to a break even is the most important thing on a weekly, monthly, daily basis potentially. And so we are going to focus all of our effort on getting to these numbers as quick as possible. But we are not just in business to break even. We are in business to make money. And so I don't want to just get by. I want to thrive. And so if we said, hey, my goal is to make $10,000 per month in profit, I'm going to put that in here. And then this tells us $62,000 is to break even. $78,000 in revenue per month should get us to $10,000 in profit. If I want to make $20,000 a month, I'm going to do $94,000 of profit. Now, this is where it gets a little funny, is because you have to know the business a little bit. And I know that the more people we have, the more revenue we can do from a payroll perspective. But I also know that having 1 manager and 3 technicians will not be able to produce $94,000 a month. I'm going to need to add staff. I'm going to need an assistant manager who's probably going to make about $900 a week. I'm probably going to need another tech. So I'm probably going to have like 2 techs. So just for simple math, I'm just going to make it 50, and that assumes we have 2 guys at 25. My math here is wrong. There we go. All of a sudden, now instead of $94,000 of sales that we need 110. Just be careful with this sheet here. Is the goal of it, of how it's designed currently, is to really figure out the break-even analysis, which is why it's called the break-even. You can obviously put in some sales volume here, but just be careful because it will get a little off depending on your business model as you really start to scale it. But that is it. That is how you figure it out. So if you run a retail-based business, so brick and mortar, go in here and enter your numbers, figure out what all your fixed costs are. I have a little list to help you here. And then figure out what your payroll is going to be, what your variable costs are going to be, your cost of goods, and then you're ready to rock and roll. Moving on, we're going to look at a contractor-based model. So in franchising, this is super popular, whether you run a paint business, fencing business, a artificial turf business, a roofing business, cabinets, flooring. There's a lot of models that follow this subcontractor model. And so our P&L is going to look different for this. I'm going to walk you through some super rough numbers here based off of some common factors. So we're going to have a manager. So somebody's going to run all the day-to-day, and let's say we pay them $1,000 a week. We are going to spend $4,000 a month on marketing. We are not going to have any rent because this is like 100% mobile business. In my case, we are going to have about $1,400 a month in subscriptions. So that would be like software and like other tools we need to use. Insurance, we normally pay on a yearly basis, which is, I don't know, $18,000. Let's say we have $1,000 in supplies. We have an $800 a month vehicle payment. We're going to spend about $200 a month in fuel, running the vehicle around. We spend about $1,000 a month in bookkeeping and $1,000 in just other random stuff. We have about $16,000 a month in fixed costs, including the payroll of our person. And you can see I added loaded costs. I put it at 20% here. You'll have to figure out what it is for your business. And then we have variable. So FDD, we know the royalties are 6%. There's a brand fund of 2%. The credit card fees 2%. Commissions in this business, we put at 3%. So we have a 13% variable cost in this. Now, one thing to notice here is my local marketing I set as a fixed expense, and the other one I did it as a percentage of sales. Really depends on the business model. But in this case, I have a minimum spend of $4,000 a month. And so I'm going to keep that as a fixed cost, not as a percentage of sales. And we do some research and we figure out that our cost of goods should be about 12%. And we want to pay our contractor labor about 38% of the sales is what we're going to budget. Our variable costs in this business are much higher, or 63%. Remember the other one, we was only 39. So very high variable costs, but much lower fixed costs. Only $16,000 a month. The other one, I think we were $37,000 a month, right? Which is what's appealing. And then we can scroll down and see we have everything we need. We have all this information. We have what we need. Our break even is $10,000 per week in revenue, $44,000 per month, and $500,030 per year. That's it. That's what you got to do to make even, to make money, to break even, to not lose money. If you have debt, I would factor that maybe in the other of what your monthly debt payment's going to be. And then how do we make money? So let's say we want to make $5,000 per month. We would need to do $13,000 a week, $57,000 a month. If we want to make $10,000 a month, $71,000. If we want to make $15,000 a month, we would need to do $84,000, about $1 million a year. Now, in this business, it should scale a little bit better than the other one, which, we had to add payroll as we start to grow. In this model, because it is 1099 contractor basis, all that contractor labor is project-based, is baked into this variable expense right here. And so this is a little bit more scalable in terms of what's possible. The limitation you're going to have is how much can a single manager produce in revenue. And if you said, hey, this is about it, like he can produce about $1 million a year as a single person, then you can start to think about, well, what if I had 2 people? And then from there, you just have to decide to say, hey, if I have 2 people, do I just double this? Do I double my vehicle allowance? What does that start to look like? We could go hold down a rabbit hole. But the point of this is just from a break-even analysis is figure out what these expenses are for your business, and then you can back into it. Now, so similar to above, there are some things that can happen that can drastically change your numbers here. We're back to the break-even analysis. 44K is our break-even. Keep that in your mind, 44K. But what if our labor, instead of being at 38%, we just kept getting screwed because we're just not in the game very much. And labor's 45%. Now, instead of $44,000 we need to break even, we're at $54,000. We need another $10,000 a month just to break even. And what if we estimate the jobs wrong? And instead of 12% cost of goods, we are at 15% cost of goods. Whoa, now we need $60,000 to break even, not even to make money. We were at 45, now we're at 60. And what if marketing was like way harder than we thought, and now we're spending $6,000 a month there, and the guy, like we had trouble hiring people for this amount of money. Maybe we say, hey, we got to pay a 5% commission instead of a 3% commission. Man, all of a sudden we're at $73,000 of sales we need just to break even on the business, let alone, so we were at 44 before, now we're at $30,000 more because our costs got way out of control. And so this is why it's just so important. I want to keep stressing this, that you really get to know, what do my margins need to be? And then you need to be an animal in terms, like a hawk on these numbers, to get it to the numbers that you need to build. Because if not, you're going to be totally screwed. Moving on to the final piece of this, which is the truck-based model. So there are some franchises out there where you buy a truck, and then that truck has a certain capacity. For example, window cleaning, you could send 2 guys that can clean a bunch of windows, and those guys can only produce so much in a day. Then when they're at capacity, you have to then buy another truck, and then you get that truck rolling, and that truck reaches capacity, and then you buy another truck, and you grow the business by stacking trucks. So window cleaning, power washing, there's B2B services like a kitchen fryer oil or hood cleaning, or there's lots of different models. But if you're looking at a business where it's heavily depending on trucks that have crews on them, this is the model that you're going to want to use. Now, it's just like the other one we did where we have fixed expenses, we have variable expenses. Now, the addition here, though, is we have per truck expenses, because every time you start to add a truck, your per truck expenses go up, right? It's like a fixed cost within a fixed cost. It's a fixed cost within the trucks. So let's walk through this. So let's say we have a manager who's running this thing. We're paying $1,000 a week. We're spending, $4,000 a month on marketing. We need to park somewhere. We have a bunch of trucks here. So let's say we have to spend $1,000 in some like warehouse space to park our stuff, $1,400 in subscriptions, back to, I don't know, $12,000 in insurance. Now, in this case, this insurance for me is only like liability insurance, because how insurance works is you have liability, and then they're going to charge you per truck. They're going to charge you insurance, and they're also going to charge you workers' comp, which normally is related to how many employees you have, which is related to how many trucks you have. Once you start to kind of like understand how these businesses work, you can start to stack these things. So supplies, I don't know, $1,000 like a month on stuff. This is our general manager vehicle payment. So we have a GM salary. He's also going to have a vehicle. Maybe it's just like a normal truck, like a Maverick or something, that he's going to have that. He's going to have some fuel costs because he's going to be driving around, like checking on these jobs. We're $1,000 a month of bookkeeping, $1,000 months on whatever other stuff. Our variable costs, same as the last one, 6% royalties, 2% brand fund, 2% credit card fees, 3% commission. And then we can work into our per truck expenses. We have the overall expenses, and now we need to stack trucks. And so the trucks we buy, let's say it has an $800 per month payment for like a ProMaster 200 or Transit, whatever it is. We're spending $250 a month on fuel. We are going to spend $7,000 a month on workers' comp and auto. If you don't know this number, something you could like call an insurance agent. You can get some rough numbers. Talking to other franchisees should be able to get this. Franchisor should be able to help. It shouldn't be too difficult. And then what we want to figure out is, what's our payroll? So this is the crew guys. So I like to think about this in a per week basis. Most of these businesses pay every week. And so I'm going to say, as a formula, we're going to hire guys for $18 an hour, and we're going to have 2 guys per truck, and they're going to work 40 hours a week. So we're going to be about $1,440 in labor per week, per month, per year, and then loaded costs. In this case, I'm back to 15% for payroll taxes and such. We have $16,000 per month in fixed costs, and then we have an $8,700 per month in truck costs. All right. And then we have our cost of goods. So this is like a simple business, cleaning windows, pressure washing, like whatever. There's not a lot of cost of goods in this example. And we have about 13% of variable costs from above here. This one gets a little funky because your break even really depends on how many trucks you have. Now in this business, we have a very high contribution margin because our costs are really embedded in the trucks, right? And so break even, if we have 1 truck, we need to do about $30,000 per month to break even with 1 truck. Now, the problem that a lot of these guys run into is the capacity per truck may only be $25,000. So you have 1 truck and you say, hey, I'm not going to add my second truck until I'm making money. The problem is you may never be making money with 1 truck. Does that make sense? Because you can start to see your break even goes down. So at 2 trucks, your break even is $42,000 or $22,000 per truck. All right. And then at 3 trucks, your break even drops to $52,000, which is what, 18 I'm not good at doing math, $17,000, $18,000 per month. So at one truck, you need $31,000. And at 3 trucks, you only need $18,000. So because you have all these fixed expenses, which are going to incur no matter how many trucks you have, when you start to play with this number, you say, hey, I'm going to make $10,000 a month. Bada bing, bada boom. With one truck, $43,000, virtually impossible if the capacity per truck is only 25,000. And you can go from there, 53, 64. So if you think, hey, the capacity per truck is $25,000 times 3, 75,000. The other way you can start to play around with this is to say, well, what about at 15,000? Or what about at 18? What if I want to make $18,000? This is telling you if you can get to all 3 trucks at 100% capacity, which is roughly $74,000 a month, you'll be making $18K a month, right? Not a bad gig. And even better, if you are, the GM, you could obviously add that salary back to yourself. So let's play the numbers. So let's go back to our break even. Let's call 52K for the, I'm gonna just add another little thing. This is like divided by 1, obviously, divided by 2, and divided by 3. So this is like the per truck level per month. What if we said that the guy we had to hire, we got to pay $1,200. And what if we found out that we have to spend $6,000 to get the leads we need? And man, we need to pay $2,000 for our rent, and our insurance is crazy because we live in a state that has crazy payments. And whatever, this is higher. He drives a lot more, and this is way higher because whatever, and they drive a lot more. And our insurance is all out of whack, $10,000 per truck, and we can't hire anybody at 18. We got to pay them 20. And then, oh my God, we're at $38,000 now from 30 per month, 52, 60. So here it just goes up and up and up, and just harder and harder to make money the higher your expenses are. We could go the opposite way too, right? We could say, hey, this is my base case, but like I'm going to be the GM and I'm not personally going to take a salary. I already have a vehicle that's paid off that I'm going to use. I'm just going to wrap it. I still need to expend money on fuel and stuff. I'm going to get a really good deal here. Fuel's cheap. I'm able to get guys at $16.50 an hour, but we're going to pay these commissions maybe to them. Another way to look at it. My cost of goods, I'm going to get that down a percent, be it by like whatever, doing a better job. And so now all of a sudden, instead of $30,000 per truck to break even, I am profitable at $22,000 for my first truck in the month. And then I'm at 31 for 2 trucks and 41 for the other. Isn't it kind of versus 17? Right? We're at 17K before. I forget what the other numbers were. But this is the kind of thing that you really need to get comfortable with, is how these numbers start to flow and then what the effects is on your bottom line. Because when you're in the thick of it, when everything is tough and like you look at your bank balance, you're like, why don't I have any money in here? And you really want to understand what should my numbers be, and then what are, and then more importantly, what actions I need to take to make it happen. So if you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. And as I said, you can grab this sheet totally free in the comments, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.